In this video, I'm going to help you to overcome sticky desire. I'm John Patrick Mueller. I'm a former Buddhist monk. And so, as you know, being a monk, there's a couple things that are very important to the lifestyle of a monk. And one of them is being not just trying to overcome attachment or sticky desire, because all Buddhists try to do that. A lot of spiritual people are trying to overcome their negative desires and learn to not act on them. But also monks are very interested in, you sort of become a symbol of overcoming sticky desire. You become a symbol of not acting on attachment, right? And the other thing that monks do, obviously, is discipline, like learning discipline, learning to hold themselves back from negative behavior. And so if you're watching this, then you're probably either one of my private clients who requested it, or this might end up on YouTube. I'm not sure. But right now, I'm going to teach you from my experience. I was a meditation teacher, a Buddhist, student and teacher for a long time. And I have a lot of unique experience on this that doesn't make it to mainstream society, although these concepts are pretty well understood and practiced within Buddhism. Okay, so I'm going to do this video in one take with no edits, and I'm going to do it while I drink my little coffee and milk, and hopefully there's not too much background noise for you. Okay, and so attachment, they call it attachment, right? Now, it's very important to define this term and to identify what it actually means, because a lot of times people don't, most people have no idea what it means. And what happens is people end up who start trying to work with attachment, they start to sort of draw a circle around stuff that isn't attachment, and they include it with attachment, and they think they have to get rid of everything, and they end up being sad. Attachment is one of the most insidious delusions. It's a negative state of mind. It's a delusion. It means it believes in things that don't exist. Attachment can only wish for things that do not exist. Attachment cannot wish for things that do exist, because in the moment of that cognition, in the moment of that mind, that conceptual lens that we're using, that perception, right? In that moment, we have exaggerated the attractive quality of something, and we end up wishing for something that is not a true thing, is an exaggerated version of a thing, okay? And so attachment in that case is kind of the opposite of anger. Anger, according to Buddhism, it starts out by sort of exaggerating the negative qualities of something. We exaggerate the faults of somebody, the bad qualities of a thing, the weather, the government, that person who cut us off in line, or whatever. And we sort of start to mentally exaggerate the bad qualities of somebody. And at the end, we have a mental picture of an intrinsically horrible person. And we feel that they're very undesirable. And at the end of anger, the little cherry on top of anger is that we wish to harm them. People don't admit that to themselves, but anger actually has culminated. Finally, it becomes full-fledged anger when we have a wish to harm somebody. And it doesn't mean physically, it just could mean that you wish that they fall down and get hurt or something, right? And so anger is always relating to something that doesn't exist, because it's an exaggerated version of a thing. It's not the real thing, right? And attachment is the exact opposite. But it starts in a similar way. So all delusions start with something that's called inappropriate attention. Okay, I'm gonna give you a lot of info today. You should probably write it down and watch this video several times. All delusions, but I'm gonna get back to the very practical stuff in a moment, but I just wanna help you to see how it unfolds. All delusions start out small. My friend gave me this analogy. It's like, I think he told me a story, right? So him and his brothers were playing, and they grew up upstate New York or something, and there's like a barn, and they had this rag, and they would light the rag on fire and throw it in the pile of hay, and then they would stomp it out. And then they'd light the thing on fire and then put it in the hay, and it would start to burn, and they'd go a little bit longer, and then they would stomp it all out. and they did it again a little bit longer, they stomped it all out. But finally they did it and it got too far and it burned the whole freaking barn down. Okay? And so delusions are like this, and we can see it, mostly we can see this with anger, but it happens also with attachment. And if you're watching this, you probably can relate to that. Okay? What happens is we start paying attention to the wrong things about a person or a thing. So in the case of anger, we're paying attention to the negative qualities. We do this mantra in our mind. Oh no, they didn't. They shouldn't have done that. How dare they do that? You know, no freaking way would they do that. Oh my God, I can't believe. And we kind of mentally, create all the bad things. We are focusing on all the negative things that they've just done, all the ways that we could be receiving harm. So anger always comes from believing that we're going to receive harm from the outside. It's either that we received harm from somebody in the past, or we're receiving harm from somebody in the present, or we will receive harm. Like for me, this is where I catch myself sometimes, is I mentally go into the future and I see a pattern and I'm like, oh my God, if this isn't reversed, then this person's going to harm me in the future. And I start to like protect myself from this future thing that is imaginary and not definite. But anyway, we can get angry at somebody for things they might do to us in the future. And we can also get angry at somebody if it looks like they're going to harm people that we're attached to, right? So our family and friends, if somebody might harm our family and friends, we might get angry at them. If somebody is harming our family and friends in the present, we might get angry at them. If somebody might harm our family and friends in the future, we might get angry at them. So that's how you can kind of classify anger, as it looks like we're going to receive harm. It looks like us or someone we're attached to is going to receive harm, and anger kind of starts to exaggerate the bad qualities, blah, 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 right? But it starts with this, it's like the rain dance of anger is we just focus on all the negative things, and it builds up this intrinsically faulty person in our mind, and then we wish to harm them, or we wish that they would get hurt, or something like this, right? Okay, or we want to say something that would cut them up, Yeah, and so that's anger. And the opposite of the antidote of anger is patience. So patience will overcome anger. Patience and love and compassion overcomes anger, but that would be a different topic for a different video. I just want to kind of show you how things arise. So attachment is actually a lot deeper than anger. Attachment lasts longer. You can be angry at someone and you could love them 5 minutes later. Attachment is deeper. It takes longer to work with. It's also tricky, because anger is very easy to identify as being a fault. It's very easy to identify that anger is harming us. Anger harms us. If we have anger, we harm us. This is an analogy within Buddhism. I think it's more of contemporary Buddhism. I didn't learn this in my tradition, but like if you get angry at someone, it's like picking up a hot coal so you can throw it at them, right? You're the one who gets burned. And so anger definitely hurts us. And that's very easy to see that, right? It makes our mind really uncomfortable. Anger destroys our positive karma too. Unfortunately, when we have done good deeds, we create this positive karma. And unless we've kind of dedicated that through certain prayers, then anger can destroy it. Just like boiling alcohol can destroy its potency to get you drunk. And so, or just like burning a seed makes it impossible to ripen. Anger can destroy positive potentialities that are in our mind, unfortunately. But it also harms us in the present. It makes us unable to sleep. It makes us ugly and stressed and unpeaceful. It's very easy to like point at our own anger and be like, I don't want you anymore. You're harming me. But attachment is very difficult, actually, to identify as being a fault. Right? Even when we start to learn what it is, we start to see, oh yeah, sticky desire. Oh yeah, uncontrolled desire. Oh yeah, desire for things that I can't control. Oh yeah, desire for things outside myself that I think will make me happy, but it really won't. Oh yeah, desire for the grass is greener on the other side. There's a belief the grass is greener, and then I wish for the greener grass, and this wish is taking me into suffering. You can kind of see it, right? You can kind of see it, but when it's in our mind, especially before a big letdown. So here's the thing about attachment that I've learned. There's the two stages. There's the up the roller coaster, so to speak, where you're getting the highs, right? You're getting the good, you're in chase. You're in hot pursuit of something that you love, right? Just like a drug addict, if you've studied drug addicts like I have, substance abuse, or if you've used them yourselves, like I have a little bit of experience of that, you actually start getting the high or the positive effects of the substance before you ever take it, while you're in pursuit of the thing, right? And so the relapse happens long before you get the drug, right? I might have decided, okay, I'm gonna go get that thing, whatever it is, right? The nickel bag of pot, right? But like, there's a ritual that a person will do as they are obtaining the thing and rolling the thing or getting it ready for them to use. As all the ritual of use begins to happen, they're experiencing already the euphoria or the high of the thing, right? And it's very well noticeable with other drugs like crack, cocaine, heroin. Like, it's very measurable that all the dopamine is like fully giving them the dump, like all the good stuff, right, from the substance. Anything that they would love about it, they get it before they take it, while they're in hot pursuit of the thing. And so when we are in hot pursuit of the thing that we want, right, whatever that is, while we're in the chase, in that moment, the attachment feels like it's our friend. It feels like it's bringing us towards what we want. It feels like it's bringing us in the direction of the things that we desire. It feels like it's a trusted guide that we can trust to lead us to pleasures in life. And in particular, the pleasures that we like the most, like our special pleasures, right? Whether it's another person or whatever, right? And it's only later when we're going up, right? And eventually we come down, we have to come down. And that's how it is, because this is an impure type of happiness. This is not pure happiness that we're going for. This is artificial happiness. It's a fake happiness. It's a little high, right? It's not the true happiness that comes from within, right? It's not like, you know how like a positive state of mind, like peace and love and gratitude and joy, like these give us an unchanging positive experience on the inside. But the things outside ourselves do not do that. Okay, I'm gonna get into that all later. This is a very big topic, and there's some nuance to it. And so what I'm trying to do first is just to help us to see the attachment in action. We're chasing it, and it turns out we don't get what we want. It turns out that the grass isn't greener on the other side. It turns out the other person is not a source of happiness. It turns out that cheesecake that we really wanted, and we started getting the cheesecake high before we got it, right? And then we eat it, and then we're like, I'm still it's like drinking salt water. You know, that's what it's described as in Buddhism. You know, getting the things that we want is like drinking salt water. We never actually become satisfied. In fact, we just get thirstier. The things outside ourselves are like salt water. They only make us thirstier. They cannot quench our thirst. We're a person who's extremely thirsty. If you're watching this, you can probably relate. We are thirsty animals. We're thirsty creatures, beings. Existentially, we are looking for something that we have not found yet, but we are being tricked into thinking that this can exist outside of ourselves. We're being fooled and deceived by our own mental states of mind, and capitalism and the government have 100% jumped on this opportunity, and they sell us the things that we want, or that we think we want. But all we're trying to do is quench our thirst and to actually feel satisfied for once. We just want satisfaction. We want to feel content. We want to feel actually like deeply peaceful. And what we need to do is learn to start aiming within. We need to start looking within, because peace, joy, freedom, like positive states of mind give us what we're looking for. In Buddhism, we say inner peace is the true source of happiness. This is what we talk about at the beginning of every meditation class. Inner peace is the source of happiness. Because when we feel peaceful, we feel happy. It doesn't matter what's going on outside of you. The world could be playing you your favorite song while serving up your favorite food, while the people that you love are dancing and singing all around you, and you're on your favorite beach, and whatever. All these things on the outside could be going perfectly, but if you get angry at something, you remember something that starts to make you angry, you're not happy. Why? Because your inner peace was destroyed by the anger, right? Someone who has great external conditions in life but is very, very stressed. For example, imagine like a high-powered business person, businessman, businesswoman, who's like living in the luxury penthouse. They got people to answer their bidding. They have all these great things and beautiful meals. But let's just say they're hit with like a giant lawsuit that strikes them to their core, and they're getting stressed about it, right? If they have stress in their mind, they're not peaceful, they're not happy, right? But the opposite could be true, right? If someone has inner peace, regardless of what's going on around them, they're going to feel happy. So inner peace is the source of happiness. And we can see that the more peaceful we become, the happier we become. The less peaceful we become, the less happy we become. But if you look at external things, they are what they call changing. It's changing. Buddha called it changing suffering. So the things outside ourselves that we normally think of as pleasant, desirable, think of all the things that you enjoy outside yourself. Buddha, instead of calling it pleasure, he called it changing suffering. Because what we do is we just change from one source of suffering to another. And the pleasure that we experience is just a reduction of previous suffering. Okay? So imagine eating cheesecake. At first, for someone who likes cheesecake, then cheesecake is freaking amazing, right? It just hits the right spot, And the first few bites of cheesecake are incredible, right? They're amazing. They're the best. The best thing that cheesecake can offer you are the first couple bites, because then it starts to become kind of neutral. It starts to get less good. It becomes just normal. And then the more you eat, it starts to even feel uncomfortable, and you might even feel sick. If you were to eat 2 whole cheesecakes, you would say, I'm never having this again. People do this with alcohol every single weekend sometimes. Friday night, all they really want is that drink. They keep thinking about it, and it gives them so much pleasure. But then by Sunday morning, I'm never drinking again, right? And so why? It's because all the thing can do for us is it gives us a reduction of our previous pain. We have some sort of pain of not having cheesecake. We have pain of the monotony of our life. And the alcohol can relieve us of this pain, right? And so on, right? And maybe we have the pain of loneliness. We have deep loneliness, deep existential loneliness. And then we see another person, we're like, oh, you're my source of happiness. But the more we spend time with them, the more neutral it becomes. Actually, if we were peaceful, then we'll notice that when attachment arises in our mind, it disturbs our mental peace. Attachment is actually very agitating. Attachment has a very agitating flavor. It's mentally agitating compared to peace, right? But compared to the boredom and the pain of loneliness, it feels so pleasant, right? But think about 2 children. Here's a good example. 2 children who are inseparable, right? And they just want to spend the weekend together, and their parents let them sleep over. I've had this. I did a lot of sleepovers with friends. You just want to be around that person, right? It's so amazing, and you just can't wait to see them again. But then you spend 3 days together, and by the end, your parents have to separate you because you hate each other. Why? Because the more we are exposed to these things outside ourselves that are supposedly pleasures and pleasant and sources of happiness, the more they reveal their true nature, which is that they're sources of suffering. But we bounce back and forth between different flavors of suffering. I'll have this flavor of suffering, I'll have this flavor of suffering, and each one gives us a new experience And so it feels like we're releasing or relieving a previous pain. And so each new flavor of suffering, because it's new and because we're exchanging it for an old type that started to reveal itself, all that happens is we get a relief of previous pain, and we call that pleasure, but Buddha called that changing suffering. It's just still pain. It's on the spectrum of pain. All we're doing is we're reducing our spectrum of pain by getting new types of pain and stopping the old types of pain. And so we get less pain, and we call that pleasure. This is what people do. They're so looking outside themselves for happiness that they end up engaging with sources of pain, and whenever they have less pain, they call it pleasure. Oh, I love my new job. It's not as bad as the old one. Oh, I'm going to vote for this guy because he's not as bad as this guy. Oh, I like this music because it's not as bad as hearing the thoughts in my head, right? Oh, I'm on vacation because I had to get away from my house for a while, right? Oh, I'm so happy we're on this date because I was so lonely and bored in my apartment by myself, right? Or I'm so happy to be by myself because I had to get away from that person who was talking my ear off. Do you see how all we do is we find less suffering? We're just seeking out this reduction of suffering. We're constantly addicted to things that we think will give us less suffering. We think that they're giving us happiness, but all they're doing is reducing our suffering. But then each of them is their own source of suffering. Everything outside ourselves is a source of suffering. And so the more we engage with it, the more neutral it becomes, and then the more bad it becomes. You can check. Please run this experiment for yourself. Please see if this is true. Think about anything in your life outside yourself and just realize that the more you engage with it, the more suffering it gives you. And that whenever you switch to something new, all it really did was reduce a previous suffering, and that the more you engage with it, the more suffering it will give you. And just realize that we're on this wild goose chase for happiness, but we're looking in the wrong places. We're looking in the empty cave for treasure. We need to just look within, because peace, guess what? When you meditate, guess what happens? You become peaceful. And when you feel peaceful, then what happens? Does that peace, the more and more peaceful do you become, does that start to change and give you more neutrality and then more suffering? No, it does not. Now, when people first start meditating, usually they're just reducing external noise and reducing this incessant flow of thoughts. And so they might feel like, oh, I'm just reducing suffering. But you're engaging with something that is in itself a source of joy. When you start, meditation takes a little practice, but when you actually start to get some peaceful feelings from meditation, actual peace in your mind, which will come through focus, concentration gives rise to peace. Actually, people don't understand this. Concentration gives rise to peace. Concentration. There's other types of peace. Wisdom will also give rise to peace. Concentration and wisdom give rise to peace. Okay? And the more that you have, does it start to become more and more neutral and then give you suffering? No. The more peace you have, the more happy you feel, until you start to feel joyful, until you start to feel blissful. Until you're in nirvana, you have freedom for everything. Right? And so this is the fundamental reason why people suffer, is because they're so focused outside themselves, addicted to things that can't ever give them happiness, right? And this attachment is what is making us focus so much outside ourselves. Okay, so I think this is good for video number 1, and I'll come back with video number 2 to talk more about attachment in and of itself and how to release it.